Now in this lecture we are going to look at how to access any given cell in the array. So what does it mean to access a given cell in the array? It means to read the value of a given cell number. Now as you remember, when we are declaring an array, it's declared in the memory like this. So we have an array name over here, and inside this variable we are keeping the physical location of first cell. Then to access given cell, so for the first cell we are adding 0, for the second cell we are adding 1, for the third cell we are adding 2. So this means that the index of these cells starts from the 0. So by using index we can access the value of given cell in this case. So how can we tell the computer which particular value we would like to access? So this is where index takes a vital role. So you can use what's called an index to access a value in an array. So first we are writing the array name, then inside square bracket we are writing index. So you need to keep in mind that the first cell of array is located at 0 index. So index starts from 0 in the array. So if you want to access the first element, we are putting 0 index and array name over here. And the index is increased sequentially from left to right. Now for example, if you want to access an element from this array over here, first we are putting the array name, and then we are putting the index of the element that we want to access. Now in this case, to access this first cell over here, we are putting array name, and in the square bracket 0, it will return as A. Now if you want to access the fourth element in this array, so you see that 1, 2, 3, 4, D is the fourth element. Now in this case, we need to put index of 3 because at the index of 3, the fourth element is located. Now based on this logic, let's see how can we access an element of array in practice. Now as you remember, in our previous lecture, we have created insert method for this single dimension array class. Now here, we are going to access the elements that we have inserted to this array over here. So in the main class, we have inserted 3 elements to this array. So we are creating this array based on this single dimensional class that we created over here. So after inserting 3 elements over here, we are going to access the elements of this array over here. So as we mentioned, we need to put the name of array, then the index. Now you see that our array is located in this class. So this means that we need to find out array name. Now in this case, you see that we have initialized our array name over here, which is ARR, and it's located in single dimensional array. So this means that first we have to access the class, then we have to access the array. Now to get the value of array from here, I will create a variable which is called first element and set the first element of the array to this variable over here. So we know that it is located in SDA class, so SDA.ARR. So to access first element, we are putting 0 in there. Now I'm going to print out this element to the console to see that if we are accessing the first element or not. Now by doing so, we are printing out the first element variable to the console. Now if we run our code, now first it's inserting these 3 elements to our array, then we are reading the first element. So as you see at the 0th index, 10 is located over here. So this means that by accessing this 0 index, we are printing out the value of first cell over here. Now for example, if I want to print out the third element, so I'm going to do the same operation, change the value name, for example, to third element, and here we need to put the index of 2 because index starts from 0, so third element is located at the second index. So if I just copy and paste this third element to the console, then in this case if I run our code, now you'll see that we are accessing the third element. So the third element is located at the index of 2. Now what happens if I try to access the element that does not exist in this array over here? For example, if I put index of 3 over here and try to access, for example, setting it to third element and try to access it, you'll see that we are getting an error. So here, as you see, array index out of exception is raised by Java. This means that index of 3 is out of bounds for length of 3. So if the length of array is 3, so the maximum index will be 3 minus 1, which is 2. So as you see here, when we are declaring our array, we have put 3 over here. So this means that we cannot put index more than 2 in this case. That's why it's raising an exception over here. Now if you want to print a message to the console when we are receiving this exception, you can use try and catch block to print out proper message to the console. Now this is how we are accessing the elements of array in Java. Now the time complexity for accessing the elements in Java takes O1 time complexity because here we know the physical location of first address. So by adding the indexes to this location, we are accessing the elements over here. So this means that it is not time consuming operation. So the time complexity is O1. Now the space complexity is also O1 because here an extra memory is not required for accessing any given element in the array. Now with this we have concluded this lecture. So in this lecture we have learned how can we access an element of array in Java. So see you in the next lecture.